When does a note become a high note? What makes a high note high? And why do we hear high notes so differently from notes that aren't high? What if I told you that the way we differentiate between high notes and not high notes has to do with the way our ear is built, and not how we actually sing? The human ear is tuned to a very specific set of frequencies. It's not just how we hear, it's how loud we hear it. This graph is measured in decibels, and decibels are exponential, meaning that this isn't a switch or just a dialing of a knob. This is several knobs cranked up to high. But what does this have to do with high notes? If we look back at that graph, we can see that there is a very specific frequency where the escalation of volume of these decibels starts, and it is from B natural to C. But let's go higher. Perfectly blended with the guitar. Whoever set that up is a fucking genius. That's so smart. In this instance, they're blending two instruments, her voice and an electric guitar. So what's happening is that when she's over here in this sort of high part of her range and there's not a lot of texture in that steely way, she's introducing an electric guitar to fill up this space, to fill up the frequencies that are not being occupied. And it works so well because that's exactly what she's missing in that texture. So to blend that with an instrument is so smart. And it actually just wouldn't sound the same if she didn't do it that way, right? It's the guitar and her voice blending in this sonorous way. It's so good. Now that is one of many examples of how Beyonce is utilizing these different sounds and overtones to create sounds, textures, exciting musical ideas, all with just an arrangement and her voice. The rest of the video, we're going to go from Beyonce's lower head voice up into the stratosphere of her head voice. And I put that in quotations because there's so much that goes on that the term high head voice just doesn't do justice to what we're about to hear. This transition into this world of Beyonce's upper registers. Now, before we get into the rest of the video, I have some resources for you if you feel stuck in your practice and you just aren't improving. Some of those resources are free, some of them are affordable, and then the other ones are a little premium. But they're all useful, I promise. Ooh. It's like ghostly and although she's doing ooh, where it gives you a certain kind of tone color. I saw that at first I was like, what is that? Because I heard Jasmine Sullivan do it, and it's like naughty. You're not supposed to do that in classical singing. So when I first heard it, I was like, that's naughty. Give me more. That's not an inappropriate thing to say at all. Haunting. Beautiful. Oh my God. Her voice is so pretty. Oh my God. That's otherworldly sounding. That's so cool. It's not like it's not straight up opera because it's missing like the twang and the steel that you would expect from opera. However, she musically calls upon that in belting when she wants that. This is very, very, very nice. It's lush. It's really cool. That's really hard. Yeah, that's more classical. That's with the twang. Her ability to do it with and without twang is actually really impressive. Twang makes it a lot easier to go up when you're singing in this way because your larynx is raised by the muscles responsible for twang. So the difference between twang and not twang is quite noticeable. No. Let's get out a spectrogram because that's actually a much better way to show it. So twang is going to be highlighted right around this frequency range here. I'll show you that when you bring it in and out, it's tremendously different. I mean, that's a very, very stark difference. And what she does so well, the reason why I don't sound anything like her, aside from the fact that I'm not Beyonce, spoiler alert, the reason why it sounds so much, it's almost like neutered when I don't have twang in, and that's because I am used to operating on the most neutral kind of roundish vowel that I possibly can in opera. So I have that aesthetic, that it's lush sounding. But if you do that and do head voice at the same time, it sounds almost flaccid. Right? It doesn't sound very compelling. But when she does it, the difference is that she's adjusting the vowels. So when I say that's classical-esque, she's borrowing from pieces of it that are useful for the artistic aesthetic that she's going for, and then she's changing them because this woman doesn't know how to be limited. You can kind of hear it when it comes in there slightly. That has a lot of twang in it. That's just straight classical. That's nice. These are not getting picked up terribly well by the phone. Oh, that's what I say that. Excuse me. We're going to go backwards because I need to shut my mouth. Perfectly blended with the guitar. Whoever set that up is a fucking genius. That's so smart. This is where classically trained musicians are generally really, really idiotic when it comes to sound design. I fucking love sound design. The reason I love sound design is because we can take what I just showed you earlier with the spectrogram, and we can mess around with it by adding different elements. Sometimes we do it with EQ, reverb, whatever, but in this instance, they're blending two instruments, her voice and an electric guitar. So what's happening is that when she's over here in this sort of high part of her range and there's not a lot of texture in that steely way, she's introducing an electric guitar to fill up this space, to fill up the frequencies that are not being occupied. And it works so well because that's exactly what she's missing in that texture in her voice when she's singing straight. So to blend that with an instrument is so smart. And it actually just wouldn't sound the same if she didn't do it that way, right? It's the guitar and her voice blending in this sonorous way. It's so good. Oh. That's That's interesting. It almost goes into a belt. When you belt correctly, it doesn't feel like you don't feel like coming out of your face, because that's how you get a vocal injury. It's almost like it's spoken, but the mechanics of it make it really, really loud. I've been told my belts are really light, so take that with a grain of salt. I'm an opera singer. I'm not a big belting person. I love it. I just can't do it that well. But she's doing this thing where she's breaking the molds, which I love. She's taken the rule book and she's throwing it away. She's doing kind of a mixture of belting and then also this kind of head voicey thing. And you might be thinking, well, how the hell do you do that? Wagnerian tenors actually do this, where I know I said you can tilt this way, right, for the thyroid cartilage tilt, or you can tilt it back for belting, but you can actually, they're two different muscles, so you can contract both at the same time. And that gives you kind of the best of both worlds, and then you can bias one muscle versus another. As far as do Wagnerian singers do that, it's up for contention, but there's schools of thought that suggest that that is a thing that they do. And she's doing that kind of right here, not to achieve a ridiculous amount of volume, but to achieve a certain aesthetic that would be hard to achieve otherwise. Nice. Oh! Come on, mic technique. Brilliant. The fan in the back. Wow. Never the same twice, you know what I mean? And that's it for the video. I think what she's doing here is she's doing like oftentimes when you're teaching an opera singer, and men are particularly guilty of this because the gender roles assume you want the full sound all the time, always. And so while you're learning as a tenor, what you'll do is you'll develop the cricothyroid muscles, which are responsible for tilting. They tilt the thyroid cartilage, which is what gets you that vibrato and that bigger sound. Looking for my elastic. So when you tilt your thyroid cartilage, so this right here, this joint, this is the thyroid cartilage. And the vocal folds insert right on the edge of it right here. And then these muscles right here are what tilt the thyroid cartilage forward. What that does is it stretches the folds, and then you get this, because it's a stretch and then it's a tilt downwards. And you see how my arm is kind of vibrating a little bit right there? That's vibrato. That's what vibrato is. But you only get there and get that vibrato once you can actually stay there. So a lot of times what happens when people are just learning to sing opera, what they'll do is they'll reach, right? And so they'll get there, but they can't quite get it to where they need to go. So it's just kind of this like held thing, like they keep trying. She's not doing that because she can't. I actually think she's doing it for effect, which I've never actually seen that much before. At least not, usually what they'll do is they'll use tension surrounding. They'll do it surrounding the thyroid cartilage to kind of hold it in place. There are very large muscles surrounding the thyroid cartilage. So these are all the muscles around the thyroid cartilage, like take your pick, right? You can use tension to maintain straight tone, so you can tilt and then you can have tension to hold it there. Not optimal, generally not ideal. It'll get you where you want to be, but you can't do a full tour like this with that technique. So what I think she's doing is I think she's going to that point where it's almost like quote unquote reaching, but it's on purpose. It's with aesthetic control. And that's actually really, really hard. Because it's almost like you have to like go backwards in your education and your training, and you'll be like, okay, here's this little thing right here. I want to take this specific moment. That's what I think is happening. Usually I advise against that sort of straight tone, but it's how precise and relaxed it is. Like there's not, look at everything around her neck. Usually when you see that straight tone, that holding of the thyroid cartilage with tension, you see a tremendous amount of contraction in the musculature around the neck. You're not getting that here. You can see that things are not moving, but that's because they're not moving. She's straight toning without vibrato, but there's not like a lot of contraction, like none of that crap. Nothing weird is happening. It's really, really, really cool. I don't think I've heard it done that way ever. I had to go back and listen to it like 5 times to be like, what is that? Because it's not quite what normal people usually do. I think the finishing point here is Beyonce's pretty good. Pretty darn good. Yep, I think she's pretty good. When I was first learning to sing, I had a teacher whose generosity changed my life. She gave me free lessons 5 days a week with the aim of allowing me to get a scholarship into conservatory, and it worked. This woman changed my life, and all she asked in return was that I pay it forward. This entire channel exists to offer help in a way that you don't generally find anywhere else on the internet, about head voice and low voice and blend and all of it, and it's just not helpful. If you want to practice and you try to take these ideas and implement them, they just don't work. And so I made a Discord, and there's quality information that you can search. If you don't understand a term, you can search it and you can look at my videos on that topic. And I give exercises that will allow you to take this information and make it actionable so you can improve in your practice. If you believe in this mission, or you need a little bit more help but cannot afford voice lessons, there is a way that I can help you. If you click on the join button for this channel, I will offer you an unlimited amount of responses to recordings that you send in for help. The only asterisk here is that if you do not practice, I will know, and I will say you need to practice before I give you another response. But if you practice, I will help you, because that's the promise I made to this person who changed my life.